That's Hallelujah on DCB Jazz, and that was vibraphonist Lionel Hampton, joined by the pianist Art Tatum, and who else was on there? Oh, yes, Mr. Buddy Rich as well. So that is a wonderful recording. You can find on the complete Art Tatum, not solo sessions, the other one on Pablo. And then, of course, you can also find it here on this compilation that we're going to be using today called The Most Important Recordings of Lionel Hampton. And before that, a Chicago band named Soul Message Band. They brought us Uncertainty, written by their alto player, Greg Ward, their new recording, Soulful Days. It is DCB Jazz. I'm Barry Winograd, and I'm counting, that's one, you're not number two, okay. Thaddeus Tukes is here with us. And, hey, Thaddeus, glad to have you here again.
Thanks for having me, man.
Great. Oh, absolutely. And there's a wonderful show coming up on Lionel Hampton's birthday.
Yes, this Saturday, actually. He would have been 111 if he was still here. But the show has actually got the Music Institute of Chicago this Saturday at 7:30. Music Institute is 1490 Chicago Avenue in Evanston.
In the Nichols...
in Nichols Hall, yes.
Hall, right.
It'll be Joe Locke on vibraphone, myself on vibraphone, Tammy McCann, as well as other Music Institute faculty. I'm really excited. I'm actually premiering a new suite for vibes, rhythm section, and strings. So I'm really excited about that.
Oh, wonderful. Yeah, Tammy didn't know how many strings you guys were going to have with you, so...
Yeah, we're going to have a nice amount of strings.
Well, that's great. And this is all happening at 7:30 on Saturday night, and he would have been, what'd you say?
111, right?
This Saturday. Wow.
That's amazing.
Now, was this a coincidence when you guys booked this gig that it happened to be Hamp's birthday, or you just knew it was around this time so you wanted to do it?
Yeah, I think the Music Institute does something almost yearly kind of around Lionel Hampton. I know a few years ago I played there with Victor Goins, and we did a Benny Goodman suite that was also surrounding Lionel Hampton's birthday. I think this year it just worked out perfectly that they wanted to have the concert on his birthday, and they've been very excited about it. I remember when they contacted me about it, I was ecstatic to know that it was actually on his birthday. It kind of feels very special in that regard.
Yeah. So we all know that he was a great vibraphone player, and we've got great vibraphone players who are going to be there Saturday, but is anyone going to cover his drumming, his dancing, his singing, his, what am I leaving out, piano playing?
Right. Piano play. Man, there's this, I just found this record on iTunes. I'm going to check out the name. Maybe I have it on the next break, where he's playing stride.
I've got it right here.
Oh, you got it right there. See, there we go. It's incredible. I was blown away.
You got to hear those of him playing drums.
Man,
did you ever see that video of him doing Skeleton in the Closet with Louis' band, and he's playing drums and he's up and dancing?
Yeah, I did see that. Yeah, I think I saw it on YouTube.
Yeah.
Well, Jeremy Kahn's playing piano.
Okay.
I believe Ernie Adams is playing drum, Josh Ramos on bass, Victor Garcia is playing trumpet, and Audrey Morrison on trombone. So,
but no dancers or
maybe
singers.
I don't. Well, Tammy will be singing. I don't know about dancing. Maybe I'll wiggle a little bit in between songs. But
yeah, no, he was a fantastic musician, and you as a young vibraphone player, I just want to ask: is he where your first inspiration came from? Was he your first influence?
Literally, Lionel Hampton was my first introduction to jazz vibraphone. I've been taking classical percussion lessons for a while, and then at my great-grandmother's house, I tell this story all the time, but at my great-grandmother's house, I discovered his Lionel Hampton and his orchestra, their Flying Home album, and I literally played it just because I recognized the instrument, and he had a bow tie, and I like bow ties.
Yes, I know that.
And, that was it. I loved that album. That's when I decided that I actually wanted to pursue jazz vibraphone, and then I really got to study him and his life and just some of the amazing things that he did to help his community. He was very entrepreneurial outside of music. He had his own record labels and things. So I think Lionel Hampton is a really interesting, not only musician, but just an example of the quality of musicians and their intellect during, that kind of jazz age, I think.
Well, the intellect has certainly not gotten any lesser.
Right.
And he had a great business agent, and I think that's very important. And his business agent is having his wife. Gladys really took care of business, made sure everything was taken care of appropriately. And, I think every musician who really wants to move on forward needs someone to help guide them, because musicians tend to be more inventive, more into the inventive and other areas of the world.
Yeah, we don't like responding to emails.
It's just like, I'm getting paid. Oh, great.
Right. I'm getting paid. That's all I need to know. So, yeah. But, they made a great team, and they made history. So.
Oh, well, Hamp, yeah, he was very special. Why don't we listen to something from Hamp? And this is with Benny Goodman's Sextet from 1939. And it's a song he did in big band, he did in small group. This is a Sextet. Fletcher Henderson's playing piano on here. Charlie Christian, he's doing the guitar work. Artie Bernstein, the bassist. Nick Fatul at the drums. Hamp's vibes. Benny Goodman's clarinet. And that old song called Flying Home on DCB Jazz. Benny Goodman's Sextet, Benny's clarinet, Lionel Hampton's vibraphone on DCB Jazz.
Support for WDCB comes from the German Consulate in Chicago, presenting the American Folk Blues Festival exhibition at the Blues Heaven Foundation from noon April 27th through May 11th. Concerts with local blues musicians, Frank Musella from Berlin, Germany, and other events follow at Daly Plaza on April 27th from 2 p.m. Details at WDCB.org.
And support for WDCB comes from PJ's Cameron and Glen Ellen, sponsor WDCB's Jazz Thursdays at Adele's Restaurant in Wheaton, April 18th, the Sean Maxwell Duo. Further details, WDCB.org. It is DCB Jazz. I'm Barry Winograd. Thaddeus Tukes is with us here, yes. And we were just talking about how flying home, it started out at that slower tempo, which we just heard, and now today's like,
right.
Now, who picked it up? Was it Hamp himself, or was it just cats who's like, man, we can do this faster, like they did with the bebop stuff?
Well, I will say, especially now that you pointed out, it did seem like it was faster when he was old. You know, it's like videos of him when he's like 70 playing that song like pretty fast.
Oh, yeah. This is one of the very few recordings I know where it isn't, twice as fast as what we just heard.
Right. Yeah. Maybe it was a era thing, and he wanted the song to stay relevant.
Well, and I think we were talking too back in '37 when that was from, I think, or whenever it was dance time.
Right.
It was 1939. Yeah, they were all dancing. They weren't just listening. They were dancing.
They were dancing, enjoying themselves. Which I think we're kind of starting. Well, I don't want to say that it stopped completely, but we are seeing a lot more, I think, of that in jazz now, that people are being more mindful of the fact that the music really did originate as a dance form and a space for community for a lot of people. And we know what happened and why that dance aesthetic kind of faded away, and I think it made sense, but I do enjoy the fact that some people, I think, now are keeping that more in mind in their compositions and just, like you said, choosing tempos for songs. And
also the music, I think, has taken a giant leap. It's gone from a basic language, which a lot of people understood in the 20s and 30s and 40s. They grew up with it. It was a natural progression to where it's really a complex conversation that the musicians are having with each other, and hoping that the audience will enjoy that conversation as well. And it's become, because it isn't danceable anymore, or in general, it can be, but, it's not the dance, big band swing era idea anymore. It can get a little difficult for folks to listen to. But, I think youthful youths, as Dick Buckley used to say, as you have taken songs of your own and songs of the tradition and made them more easier for folks to relate to.
Yeah, I think it's important, as a musician, and a lot of musicians have their own opinions about this, but I personally think it's important to consider the fact that your art is still intended for someone's consumption, or else you probably wouldn't go through the process of pressing a CD and trying to market it to people. If you wanted to just have it for yourself, you could listen to it with your friends, right? So if I want it to be for the consumption of the general public, and I understand that most of the general public hasn't spent their whole lives studying music and
learning another
language. I want to be able to communicate with them, not in a way that I feel like I'm diminishing the value of the music and the depth of the music, but still in a way that's palatable for people to hear, because like you said, they have to be accustomed to what they're hearing now. Maybe in a world where mainstream, all of our avenues are playing jazz, and it's this wide variety of jazz that kind of shows
then everybody will dig it.
Exactly. But that's not the case yet.
No, not anymore.
So, I do think it's very important, and I think cats like Lionel Hampton, and he got a lot of his from Louis Armstrong. They had that understanding of, I'm playing something, but I'm also communicating something to my audience, and with an intent to make them feel a certain way or want to move a certain way. And it was less about the complexity of the chord changes and what alterations you could do, even though they played some very hip stuff.
Oh yeah.
But it was more about, how can I connect with you and make this one note, make you scream? How can I play Hamp with just choose a flat third and a natural sixth and play those together over and over again, and after time 4 you start kind of bobbing in your chair a little bit because it feels good.
Going crazy and having fun. And also I think they were communicating from communities, American communities that were very specific and very focused at that time.
Right.
And today the music has encompassed many, many communities, not only in the United States, but also from around the world. And that's what's the beauty of jazz and America in general, is that it's a melting pot of various cultures. And so it's very, even hard for musicians sometimes to keep up on all the new sounds that are coming our way. All right, so Thaddeus Tukes is here with us, and he's going to be at Nichols Concert Hall in Evanston at the Music Institute. I want to get that right. And Joe Locke's going to be with you, and Ted McCann and Jeremy Kahn and others. And you're celebrating Lionel Hampton. And Are there any specific tunes you guys have decided to bring from Hampton's? Because I was looking at Hamp's stuff yesterday. I'm like, man, he had a giant repertoire, just things he wrote, let alone things he covered.
Right.
So did you have difficulty deciding which songs you wanted to cover?
You know, it was. I had challenges personally, and talking to Joe Locke, he definitely did his research as well. You know, I think parts of it are more songs that might tribute Lionel Hampton, maybe songs that weren't his originally or he didn't play but may have been written with him in mind, or from another vibes player who can trace their influence back to Lionel Hampton. That I think part of the reason I'm so excited about the show is that I feel that some tribute shows are just they don't assess the influence that the person has had. You know, you play their music, but what about the other music that was inspired by their performances? And I think the great thing about this show is that we're playing some Lionel Hampton songs. I think Midnight Sun is on the set list, and, you know, some other things. But also, we're looking at Bag's Groove, for example, and talking about how Milt Jackson was influenced by Lionel Hampton. We've done original compositions to show how even we were influenced by Lionel Hampton, or how we've been able to extrapolate melodies from something he might have written originally to create, you know, another tribute to him. So I think that at this show you'll get a mix of Lionel Hampton songs, but it's really about the vibes and Lionel Hampton as, you know, one of, if not one, the most important pioneer on the vibraphone.
All right, well, why don't we listen to something from Mr. Thaddeus Tukes, who I understand is going to be performing that night.
I am going to be performing.
Right. He's with Julius Tucker, the pianist, bassist Alex Warshawski, Alvin Cobb Jr., the drummer, and you've got two sides out, right?
Yeah, I do have two CDs
Thad's
out.
Groove and what's the song?
And Vibes, yes.
Okay.
And another one's on the way, actually.
Yeah, I can't see it from here.
Right.
All right, well, let's listen to your, we'll talk about that in a minute. Let's listen to Chicago, Thaddeus Tukes Quartet, DCB Jazz. Chicago, Thaddeus Tukes Quartet, his side Thad's Groove here at 90.9 FM. For our next WDCB Night at the Jazz Showcase, Tuesday, April 23rd, we combine with the Jazz Institute of Chicago to co-present an evening, which includes a discussion at 6:30 with Rajiv Halim, Ari Brown, and myself, followed by a usual free concert at 8 p.m. Both will feature saxophonists Ari Brown and Rajiv Halim. There's no cover charge because WDCB Night at the Jazz Showcase is sponsored by Steve Maxwell Vintage and Custom Drums. Details, WDCB.org. And WDCB receives support from our listeners, including the Dan J. Epstein Family Foundation, supporting jazz, culture, and arts education in Chicago. And Thaddeus Tukes is here with us today because he's going to be part of the fun of the celebration of Lionel Hampton at Nichols Concert Hall. Why don't you give us that address once again?
1490 Chicago Avenue in Evanston at the Music Institute of Chicago.
All right. I
believe if you enter on Chicago Avenue, you go right up the stairs. The concert hall is right there. So,
well, that's how it was last time. Was it?
Right. Unless something crazy happened.
Who knows what happened last week?
Never. All right.
All right. So I got to ask you. You were talking about Hamp and the folks that he influenced, which is quite a large number. Well, if you play vibes, you've heard Hamp.
Right.
What about before him? Red Norvo or cats like that? Have you had a chance to investigate the guys who came before him?
Absolutely. Red Norvo, Kyle Jader.
No, before him.
Oh, even
Hampton.
Oh.
Before Hampton, like for the 20s.
I'm definitely very familiar with Red Norvo. There was another cat that wasn't really doing a lot of jazz stuff, but he was playing vibes in like movie spaces that I've investigated. I've tried to, I'm learning about new vibes players every day. So
I was going to ask if you've heard of Adrian Rollini, because he was a mallet man, but was actually a bass saxophonist.
Whoa!
Back in the 20s, and his double was, doing the mallet thing.
Really?
Fascinating stuff.
Was he doing xylophone or vibes?
If I remember right, with xylophone.
Xylophone. Where, you know where he was from?
No, but I'll give it to you.
I was going to say, we'll talk later. We'll talk
later. He was from America, man.
Right.
So when you were putting together the ensemble for Saturday night's tribute, was Joe Locke difficult to pin down, or were you just lucky that he was available that day?
Well, I think they actually had Joe Locke on the bill first and then added me later. So I'm guessing, I have no idea how difficult it was to pin down, though he is touring. I think he released an album either at the end of last year or the beginning of this year. So I know he's been playing a lot. And he's such a stellar player, and I'm really excited to just, be able to perform with him and learn from him in that process. So I'm more of a special guest on the show, if anything.
Oh, heavens. All right. So we were talking about Lionel Hampton and how he's influenced many folks, Joe Locke and yourself included.
Right.
When you think about Hamp and you're playing, or you're playing, and all of a sudden do you say to yourself, oh man, that was a Hamp lick I just did? Are there things like that occur? Was there a certain lick, certain sounds that you went, I got to figure out how to do this?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I won't say that Lionel Hampton was like a lick king, but he definitely had his like language, like most of our
Louis Armstrong.
I was gonna say licks, popular
his identity
exactly.
Besides his sound,
exactly, and Hamp, he was real big on tritones. He was really big on. He would kind of run the first 5 notes of a scale a lot of times just to establish the form of a song. He likes triplets where he's kind of doing double stops with one of the mallets. There are a lot of things that you can kind of pick up from Hampton, especially on that swing sound. If you really delve into Lionel Hampton's sound, you will hear that Louis Armstrong influence probably stronger than anybody else. Like there are a lot of things that Hamp does, I'm like, oh, I heard Louis do that on this track.
Well, all those cats who grew up with Louis.
Right.
Yeah, it didn't matter what instrument.
Yeah, and I guess he had the advantage of playing in his band, too. I know he's playing drums.
Yeah, he played in his band.
Right.
They met out in L.A. and the whole thing. Yeah.
Right, and that's actually in L.A. I don't know if a lot of people know this. L.A. is actually, even though the vibraphone was created in Chicago, it was in L.A. that Lionel Hampton discovered the vibes at a NBC studio. He found one backstage somewhere and played around on it. Yeah, right. And then he came back to Chicago and was basically like, I want to keep playing some more vibes. So, but I think that the most important thing about Lionel Hampton is his strong roots in that swing feel, the swing language. Even as he grew in his career and he integrated more bebop and other eras of the music, you know, even when he was 70, he was still very much married to that swing sound, at least, and the idea that he was performing for people to dance and enjoy the music. And I think that's one of the most important reasons to just keep Lionel Hampton's legacy alive, because he was the dance band, you know, and Benny Goodman, like, they were the dance swing kings. Like, that's what they did. And I think right now, more, you know, I don't want to say more than ever, but definitely right now, it's important to remember that history in the music and reconnecting with your audience in that way. In an era where I feel like sometimes, and I'm guilty of this too as a musician, we can be very musician minded and not necessarily like realizing that there are people out there that just want to feel good when they hear your music. They could care less about your sharp 9 over a flat 7, you know, like they just want to hear something that they can connect with. And studying Lionel Hampton and being now kind of, you know, a part of his legacy reminds me of that on a daily basis.
Well, I want to listen to something from Joe Locke next. He's got a quartet side, which includes the pianist Ryan Cohn, and Ryan has his own trio at Winters tonight. Bassist David Fink, Jamiel Brown, the drummer, and Joe Locke, the vibraphonist. His side, Lay Down My Heart, and these are all tunes, a lot of these tunes, I think this whole side's dedicated, never mind, I'm thinking of a different recording. Anyhow, he does this great version of Mink and Whoopi, and I've heard him do this live, too. And, it's become one of his tunes. One of those. I
haven't heard it live, but I know this track is amazing.
Yeah, okay, so let's listen to it. It's Joe Locke, it's Mink and Whoopin', it's Mink and Whoopi. It's DCB Jazz. Support for WDCB comes from I Have a Bean Coffee Roasters in Wheaton, producing single origin coffees from around the world. Available online at ihaveabean.com and by the cup at the Wheaton Libraries Cafe on the Park. Just heard Joe Locke Quartet, Ryan Cohn at the piano, Macon Whoopi recording Lay Down My Heart. It's DCB Jazz. I'm Barry Winograd, and Thaddeus Tukes has stopped by for a minute, and again, he's going to give us the address and the time of this wonderful event, a tribute to Lionel Hampton with Joe Locke, Thaddeus, Tammy McCann, and others on Saturday evening. And what time and what's the address? I know you're staring at it.
Right. This Saturday, April 20th, time is at 7:30 p.m. And the address of the Music Institute of Chicago is 1490 Chicago Avenue in Evanston.
Okay. And somebody tell Tammy what the address is.
Tammy is traveling around the country and the world performing. So
she's great.
Right, has 100 things going on, but she is fantastic. She's actually the person who called me about this performance. So I believe she's either artistic director or something close to that at the Music Institute for their jazz programming. So I'm sure she has, a bunch of things going on.
I'm just, if she's listening, she knows why I keep talking about the address.
Right.
Well, man, so you wrote a special piece for Saturday night.
Yeah, it's actually called Heaven's Gates, because they used to call Hamp Gates. And it's with a string chamber ensemble, rhythm section, horns, and vibraphone. I've been working on this thing recently where I've been trying to work out some stride vibraphone because I love that sound. Yeah, and
so do you have to use more than 4 mallets?
No, I can do it with 4 mallets. Man, maybe one day. That'd be. I've seen some people. I have some friends actually that can do 6 mallets, and I'm working on that. That takes a.
There's nothing like that Gorilla Glue.
Right. You don't have to move too much.
Yeah.
But I wrote some new music. I think Joe Locke is either doing a new piece or he rearranged some songs he already has and added strings to them.
Great.
So it'll definitely be quite an experience. I know that there's not a whole lot of music with vibes, with strings. There's I think MJQ did a couple things here and there with string quartets, but on the whole, there's not a lot, and it's definitely not a lot specifically written, with vibes in mind, I think. So I'm really excited I think that vibraphone and string instruments sound beautifully together. I've done things with harpists that have been amazing and other strings. So I'm excited for just the new things that are being showcased at this performance as a result of Lionel Hampton's influence on Like Everybody There. So
all right.
I think it's incredible.
I think it's going to be great, and I want to thank you, Thaddeus, for stopping on by. And
thank you for having me.
Thank your driver for coming by and sticking with you.
Right.
And we're going to go to a recording that you didn't know, and I brought this because I didn't think you would know. It was at the Newport Jazz Fest in 1978, Lionel Hampton All-Star Band. And let's see. In solo order, vibraphonist Lionel Hampton, guitarist Billy Mackerel, trumpeter Jimmy Maxwell, trombonist John Gordon, trumpeter Doc Cheatham. I knew Doc, I'll tell you about that. Trombonist Eddie Burt, trombonist Benny Powell, trumpet solos by Cat Anderson and Joe Newman at the end. Also joining them, we should mention that the pianist is Ray Bryant, the bassist is Chubby Jackson, and the man at the drums who's keeping all this going is Panama Francis, who I also knew for a while, too.
Wow.
He wore this big white brimmed hat.
What?
Panama hat, yeah.
Man, you a celebrity out here.
No, man. I just, I lived through a few days. All right. This is a tune that Hamp wrote called Hamp's the Champ. And we're going to listen to that, and I'll remind everyone again that Nichols Concert Hall is at
Music Institute of Chicago, 1490 Chicago Avenue in Evanston. 7:30 p.m.
All right, that's this Saturday night. Thanks again, Thaddeus, and we'll see you soon. That's the champ on DCB Jazz, Lionel Hampton's All-Star Band, Newport 78. The recording called All-Star Band at Newport 78. It's DCB Jazz. I'm Barry Winograd. Thanks to Thaddeus Tukes for stopping on by earlier. And, hey, have you recently purchased one of the new voice-activated smart speakers? Maybe it was a gift. Well, you know, no matter